Greetings and blessings to all of you who have joined us again on another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, Rashid. And man, and women, there's so many things that are taking place right now. I mean, there's so many. We go in there, we would like for you all to join us on our live broadcast Friday with former UN's Chief Weapons Inspector Scott Ritter, who will be joining us again on the platform, and he'll be discussing his new book. We'll be discussing the situation now on the battlefield in Ukraine, the situation that's going on in the Middle East, the situation that's going on between the war hawks in Washington, in London, and in Brussels, and how they're trying to pivot to Asia to try to tackle and stymie the rise of China and the lunacy of all of this. And you will also be able to post your questions in the chat. And as I scroll down, I'll just randomly pick after uh, of maybe 20, 30 minutes of the beginning of the show. I'll start picking little questions here and there from the chat to ask Scott. So please join us and tell others to join us on that show. But join us on every show and always hit the like button so that the algorithm can put us in the search engine, because we have to fight for and claw for every view. And also, you know that some people have been unsubscribed to our channel, and we know why, but we're not mad. If you feel that you've been unsubscribed, please try to subscribe back. And if your likes have been removed, please like again. We have no control over that. But again, thank you for joining us. So there's so much to address, so much to talk about. And in just a few minutes, we'll be joined by my co-host, who is Rashid also. We are Rashid and Rashid. All right. But let's go into a few things that's pressing. We know about the bank in Silicon Valley that everybody is now talking about. But remember, we have been warning you of these events time after time, show after show, about how America is so preoccupied with expanding the empire, because the empire, most of you don't understand that the empire must expand. Just like the United States and the financial system must expand the debt cycle, the empire must continue to expand and feed upon those who are in the grips of the empire, because the system and the empire is parasitic by nature. Therefore, it needs a host or multiple hosts to suck the lifeblood out so that the empire and those in the empire can continue to live their luxurious lives at the cost of the suffering of others. This is now becoming more evident and more clear. Now you're starting to see what we have been telling you for a long time, over and over and over again. So with the collapse of this Silicon Valley Bank, and Janet Yellen screaming that there will be no bailout, and at the same time offering a bailout. I can tell you, sometimes I have to pause for a minute, catch my breath, and say, really, really, where's the outrage of this? Now, think about this. As the system was imploding, the Congress and the president. Oh, I'm getting a text from one of the from my co-host. Hold on one second. And I'm gonna keep this thought. Hold on one second. All right. Let's see. Now let's go here. 1 second. He asked me, he said the link, he needs the link in another form. So this is what I'm doing right now. So everybody, please forgive me for a second live on the air. We have to do what we have to do. So this now. Okay. Is it sent? All right. Sent. Okay. But anyway, so at the same time they're screaming no bailout, they're offering bailouts, but they do it in such a sly and slick way. At the height of the collapse of the American economy and the people were suffering, the government was screaming against helping the average Joe, so they could only come up with a few $100 billion, right? Just a few $100 billion. But that was for them to shove multiple bills or multiple appropriations to the very people who started the financial crisis, right? They gave them trillions, but they did a head fake by giving you something that they really didn't want to give you, but they figured that their heads would be in the streets if they didn't give you something. So they agreed to give you something. Those few $300 checks or $600 checks or $1,000 checks, while they gave the very people who caused the financial meltdown billions and tens of billions and hundreds of billions and backdoor trillions to them on your back and on the back of future generations. That's what they did, because they don't respect your intelligence. You're gonna learn that by watching this show. You're gonna learn that these people in power do not respect you, their constituents, the citizenry, or public view or thoughts. All they care about is advancing their objectives and their policies. Okay. Now, they figured if I give them a couple $100 and they're suffering, and I hold out the thought of you getting a couple extra $100 here and there, then that would keep them in check, because they're hungry, they're starving, they're fearful that they may become evicted or lose everything. So they'll stay in check. And all the while, this big brouhaha was made about the giving of you of $300 or $400 billion, when in reality they gave the very bankers and the financiers who caused the meltdown in the markets, who caused the debt crisis. I won't say crisis, I would say multiple crises. Trillions of dollars through the back door. And not a word is being spoken about this. All right. So when we talk about the meltdown of what some are saying that is the third largest bank in America, the Silicon Valley Bank, which had the reason they were adamant about not giving people a excuse me one second. I'm getting feedback. Hold on one second. Let me Mike 1 second. All right, let's see if we got it. I hope the feed. Okay. Now we're back at it. So here we go. Excuse me, everybody. The door is open. Hold on 1 second. All right, here we are. I'm sorry, everyone. The door came open, it wasn't closed. I'm sorry, guys. We do not see Rashid in the booth. I'll bring him in just a second. But let me get this thought out. So, as we talk about this Silicon Valley Bank going belly up, to assure the people so that there would not be anger and animosity from the average Joe, they say, we will not, what? There will be no bailouts, right? There will be no bailouts. And at the same time, they go right back and say, the FDIC is now guaranteeing the entirety of the deposits there. Well, you say, well, that's a good thing they're doing it. But why are they doing it to that bank? Because the Silicon Valley Bank is where the big honchos had their money at. And by standard, the FDIC only secures upwards of $250,000. So these people had millions in there, and tens of millions, and some may have even had billions. And this bank was the bank to some of the big wigs, right? So they are trying to present this as a moment of chivalry and concern for the people, when in reality, it is a moment of people who may have lost millions and billions, right? I'm telling you, these people do not respect you. They don't respect your mental capacity. They don't think that you can think through the haze of propaganda. They don't think that, because if they did, they would not do these things to you. And when they do it, they don't even fear the repercussions of them doing it. It's amazing. Let me bring Rashid in, but I got to finish this thought. I'm going to bring him up on the screen, and I'm going to finish this thought, and I'll ask him about it. So, this bank, well, in the name says it all, Silicon Valley. This is the place where the tech giants were. This is the place where the people who are invested in the so-called tech sector were. So they had hundreds of millions of dollars. Some had millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, and some have even had billions in the bank. But the bank going belly up. This means that the bigwigs who had upwards over $250,000 would have lost all of that. So if Janet Yellen says on one hand there will be no bailouts, and then on the other hand comes back and says, hey, but we're not bailing out the banks. We're going to bail out the people. We're going to give them their full deposit. Right, Russia. I'm telling you, that sleight of hand, what you say, the 3-card Molly, that's what they do.
3-card Molly. What people were they talking about? They wasn't talking about the average Joe, Homer Simpson or Joe Lunch Bucket or Archie Bunker. He wasn't talking about them. They didn't even have no money in that bank. As they're talking about the people that make policy. Silicon Valley is where all of your tech giants come to. Your computer chips, your televisions, and all of that stuff. That's who they were talking about. They wasn't talking about the average Joe. The average Joe can go just like what happened in 2008. They bought what they said, 700 something, a couple of $1 trillion, and the average Joe didn't get 1 cent.
Not 1 penny. Not 1 penny.
But then again, that's democracy. Don't forget about that now. That's right. The way democracy runs. The rich get richer and the poor get the shaft. That's all it is.
So again, think about the disdain and the disrespect and actually the contempt that these policymakers must have for the average Joe to not even fear repercussions of making moves like this. They think that they have dumbed them down so much.
And they have dumbed them down so much. They have dumbed them down so much.
Yes.
Exactly what you say. The average Joe lunch bucket couldn't find Ukraine on a map. These guys are so stupid, don't know which way is up. And then they put out that crap on mainstream television, that MSN, Fox News, MSNBC, CBS, all a bunch of crap, lies. What did the guy from World War II, Goebbels, say? The bigger the lie, the more the people will believe.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what's going on. It just lie to them and tell them any old thing, and the moon is made of green cheese, and Joe Lunch Bucket is running to the store to get a box of crackers. They'll believe anything these people say, and like you say, the contempt for it, the contempt that they have for them, they'll tell them any old thing and expect them to go for it. Any old thing, and they'll go for it. Any old thing, and they'll go for it.
Yeah. Now,
what I was saying, did you hear any news about that? You hear any news about it saying about the Netanyahu people say they're ready to attack Iran, and they plant planes and left the station?
We don't hold the horses on it. Let's hold the horses on that for me. I'm looking for something to come to me later on this evening, because you asked me about it and I put in an inquiry about it. So I won't talk on it, especially on the air at this moment, until I get that information back. Then I'll inform you and then maybe we'll talk on it on the air or whatever like that. But again, just look at this. This article was written March 10th right here. This is on the Economic Collapse blog. And the title of the article is Second Biggest Bank Failure in U.S. History. We found our Enron. And you know what? I know some of you remember what happened during the Enron crisis and what happened and how many billions and hundreds of billions of dollars were. Go ahead.
Me being in California, I really remember Enron. Your electric bill went up from $250 to $2,000 overnight.
Yeah. So
yeah,
here's the title. It says second biggest bank failure in U.S. history. We found our Enron on the verge of a much bigger collapse in 2008. Now, before I read this article again, let's go back to something that I was bringing to everybody's attention before Rashid joined us in the booth, and I was telling you, Rashid and myself, we've been warning you of this. We have been telling you that while America has been investing all of this money that she's putting on and the money that she's investing is borrowed money, I might add you, that she's putting on the back of her future generation, meaning that she doesn't even believe that she has a future for her to saddle them with so much debt. That means that she, in her leadership, really believes that they don't have a future. So they're trying, you know how when you're in credit card debt and you say, I don't see no out, and you say, you know what? I can't pay it anyhow. I might as well spend everything. That is what it seems like what is going on with the American government and their fiscal policies. But just think about this. When it comes to this, Rashid and I have been warning you and warning you and warning you all that America continues to invest in weaponry, war, destruction, and occupation. That money would be best suited in the furtherment of education, in the reinforcement of better education. It would better America with a new model medical system and health system, infrastructure, projects, and investing at home. But she is too arrogant and too full of hubris. She's inebriated off the dollar being the world's reserve currency. She's inebriated on the power and the position that she used to have and the influence that she used to wield. And it is too tantalizing. And she gets a high from that. So it's too tantalizing and it is too for her to go. She has to continue to try to maintain this at all costs, even at the price of the average person in her society. She continues along with these policies which alienate the nation. And people say, well, this is the American government and it's not the people. Well, the American government is supposedly the elected representative of the people. And if the policies that the American government continues to impose upon the world continue to be unjust, parasitic, racist, hegemonic, then guess what happens? The people who are under the burden of that, they don't care if it's the American people or the American government. They lop it all in at once. That's why you see questioning America's position in her rationale and her thinking, and everybody now questioning dollar hegemony and America's position globally. So before I read that article, Rashid, maybe you want to say something along the lines of what I just said.
I was listening to Douglas McGregor today, and he was saying by what they have done, the American society, I mean, the leadership have done, everybody is beating a path out of her dollar. Nobody wants to be a part of it anymore. All of the, other than Europe, everybody else want to get off of it. And if everybody wants, see, people do not understand. If you don't have the American dollar as the world's reserve currency, then you have nothing. All of them big, huge ships that come over here that bring goods from Asia ceases. Ceases. You have nothing. We done told you before that 93% of everything sold in Walmart comes from China. That means all Walmart shut down. That means Target's shut down. That means all retail's shut down. Your country becomes in want. You talk about Yemen and stuff. That's headed for you. If you do not, if the people get off your world reserve currency, and his policy of stoking trouble, if they can do that to Russia, then every country on the planet has a potentiality of doing that. Every country on the planet, they can do that to them too. They can just steal their money. America and this world, what do you call them? The leadership. Jesse James ain't got nothing on him. Jesse James had to come and rob you with a gun. They rob you with a pen and steal everything. So it behooves
and then
everybody else. Label you the thief. I once seen an old movie. I think it was called Umbre with Paul Newman. And this group of thieves was robbing this place, was robbing a stagecoach. And then the guy who they was after, the guy who's an Indian agent, he came and said, well, we want the money. He said, I'm going over. He said, no, the bank robbers started laughing and said, he ought to be over here with us with a gun. And then one of them said, no, he don't rob you with a gun. He robbed you with a pencil. That's America. They rob you with pencils. They come in and they got you frozen.
So I want to say this right now.
They had you frozen.
Yeah, hold on one second. Hold on. I was just getting ready to address that. We're having problems right now. I'll try to take this issue up with StreamYard. It's dropping the signal and stuff. So if we're dropped off for a minute or we're suspended, continue to listen. Hold on or whatever like that. This is out of our control, and maybe we can correct that or whatever. But until just try to listen to the message. Now, Rashid, it's amazing that you were just bringing that stuff up, because I got a clip that's talking about the stuff that you just said. I text you when I said I was uploading some that you were just talking about. One of the clips is exactly what you were talking about. But before I play the clip, I want to go into this article right here real quick, and then we'll comment on this just a second. Now, the article says this: the wait for the next Lehman Brothers moment is over. On Friday, we witnessed the second biggest bank failure in U.S. history. The stunning collapse of Silicon Valley Bank is shaking the financial world to the core. As of the end of the last year, the bank had $175 billion in deposits. Now, where did all that money go to? But anyway, and approximately $151 billion of those deposits were uninsured. Stop right there. Remember my point from the beginning? Let's go back to, I got to read this again, because I want people to understand that the U.S. government is robbing the taxpayers, not only with a gun, but with no Vaseline. And they're doing it smiling in your face, pretending like they are the ones who sympathize with you. Listen to this article again, the first part of this article. It goes to the heart of what I was just. On Friday, we witnessed of Silicon Valley Bank is shaking the financial world to the core. Listen to this part right here. The stunning collapse of Silicon Valley Bank is shaking the world to the core. As of the end of last year, listen to this, the bank had $175 billion in deposits. Now check out. Approximately $51 billion of those deposits were uninsured. So what does that mean? That means that only $24 billion was supposedly insured by the FDIC. So why is the government telling you that there will be no bailout when they are saying that they are guaranteeing what? Everybody's deposits to the fullest. That means that they are pulling $151 billion out of thin air and adding it with another, the so-called guaranteed money, which was $24 billion, and giving it to the rich people. This is right here. So go further. See, we see this stuff and we automatically see when they start talking, Rashid and I, we automatically start talking and be like, man, why can't people see this stuff? I mean, are they that dumb? But listen to this. It says, in other words, a lot of wealthy individuals and large companies are in danger of being wiped out. In particular, this is being described as an extinction level event. Now, give me 1 second, everybody. I want you. I want you to pay close attention to what this means. All right. Uh-oh. I'm having problems right here. All right, there we are.
Anyway.
Meaning, hold on 1 second, Rashid. Hold on, because I want to get this one across real quick. The dictionary, or according to Wikipedia, the phrase extinction level event means a widespread and rapid decrease in the biodiversity of Earth, right? So let's see if we can pull up something right here. It says it wipes out life as we know it. So what they're saying is that what happened was of such a grave concern that it was on a level that could wipe out the financial lives of all who are entrapped in the system, who are ensnared in the system. Don't say what you have to say, Rashid.
The whole thing is nothing but a Ponzi scheme. We've been saying that before. The American monetary system is a Ponzi scheme. And if you lose $162 billion, why not use $162 quadrillion? Because nobody paying for it anyway. It is nothing but monopoly money. And as we saying before, when the rest of the world wise up to this, they doing pretty much so now. They see that the American system is a predator. It's made to, it's like a Nosferatu, a vampire. It's sucking the blood out of the rest of the world. And when they wind up with this and see that they really don't have no money, their money is worth nothing. It worth absolutely nothing. China's sending all those ships or loads of goods with the rest of the Asia, and they ain't gonna never get paid for it because they don't have any gold. Paul Craig Roberts said that. Also, I was watching Paul Craig Roberts on RT a few minutes ago, and he was saying that the 5 big banks of America own $180 trillion of derivatives. What is a derivative? A bet. That's all it is.
Well, check this out. Gregory Mandarino told me that, and remember that when he told me this was a year, and then before that, he told me roughly a year before that, personally, and they can go back on the show and see. He told me that there was roughly between $1 and $5 quadrillion in derivatives. Between $1 $105 quadrillion in derivatives.
It's like somebody coming and saying, well, what's your assets? And he got a bunch of paper over here with people saying that they're going to give him some money.
Yeah, yeah.
It is a Ponzi scheme.
It is. And you know, when I was talking to Gregory Manarino, this is why he said, and Gregory Manarino, for those of you who want to figure out who he is, just Google Gregory Manarino, and you can go to his website, traderschoice.net. He's a financial guru. He gives you investing advice and all of that stuff like that. He served in the Navy. I think he was a captain in the Navy, and he does a lot of finance, investing and stuff. And he's been on this platform multiple times. And sometimes we feature his videos on the show because he says share his videos. Excuse me. So he told me, and he and I were talking, and he said that what is going to happen in the financial markets will be biblical. He said on a scale unlike anything ever seen. He says it will kill more people than a nuclear bomb. Strike. That's what he said. He said that things will look like Mad Max. This is what he was telling on the show. You can, for those of you who are listening to the show or looking at the show, you can go put it in the search engine, the Red Pill Diary search engine, and pull up the interviews we've done with Gregory Manarino and how he's talked about the situations that we are now seeing. And Rashid and I have been reiterating, and we have been telling you over and over and over again that the American empire is a succubus. She is a parasite. She is, and she must. It's just the system, the financial system. Capitalism is the same way. They run parallel. They're one and the same, but they run in parallel. And what they do, they must find victims for the system to continue to go. And as Gregory said, he says this is a debt system. He says America must find more debt. She must finance more debt because once the financing of debt stops, the system implodes. Look at what is going on. And all while this is going on, she is still focused on committing atrocities in Yemen and Palestine and Syria. She is so arrogant and so full of hubris that even in the midst of this, she won't give up her occupation of Syrian lands. She still won't leave Africa. She is still trying to foment unrest between China and the Chinese province of Chinese Taipei, India and India, because chaos benefits the empire. Chaos benefits the Western world. If I can cause chaos between this person and this person, and I can step in with a solution or a pause in the fight agreement, then guess what? And agree to it, then I rule all. And then I can surely impose my views and my finances and my politics on you. Okay.
When does a leech get off sucking blood? No, it never stops unless you take it off, and that's America.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening?
Yes,
it's the rest. China. See, this is why she attacked Libya. This is why she attacked Iraq. This is why she had the Arab Spring, because those countries' leaders were trying to get off of the succubus, trying to throw the leech off of them. But she didn't messed around and got two huge behemoths now ready to get off. You can't go and slap down China like you slapped down Iraq. You cannot invade Russia like you invaded Libya. You just can't do that. And now those two are, like I said before, Henry Kissinger and Richard Nixon was smart enough to keep those two separate. You don't want them to go together because it's a little bit too much for you to handle. But the leadership of America now are stupid. They're not sharp like those were. What they said, they call him Joe Biden, Pepe Escobar calls him the crash test dummy.
Yeah.
These people are not the sharpest. And then you have Donald Trump, who's another he's another one that ain't the sharpest bulb in the briar patch. They pushing these two together, and it's going to be very hard for them to overcome these. See, once China and Russia come together, it's just not those two. It invites other ones to sit up there and say, well, I want to get off. Well, I want to get off. I want to get. Everybody's raising their hands and I want to get off of the dollar too. And only reason why it didn't take place is because nobody was strong enough to stand against her. But Russia and China and now Iran and all the rest of them, even Saudi Arabia, who is the very very nature of a vassal state, even they talking about getting off of them. And this is what's taking place. Everybody want to get off the dollar, and if she ain't got no all that high price, pumped up military stuff, all that. We got $1 trillion worth of military budget. A bunch of junk. And so everybody nobody's scared of her anymore. Nobody's scared of her aircraft carriers and this. Russia and China can sink them 2,500 miles into the ocean and sink it dead accurately, and you right, Iran too, and blow them out of the water. So that's what she had, gunboat diplomacy. She could send her warships in there and intimidate everybody all over the place. And then when everybody look up, oh, it's America, everybody's shaking in their boots. Everybody ain't shaking in their boots no more. Yeah. And if Russia and China are leading the spearhead to get off the dollar, people don't understand it. If you do business in the American dollar, she takes a portion of the money that you use to transfer, right? If you're in the SWIFT system, when you use the American dollar, she gets a part of that. Well, if you get off the dollar, then she can't get no part of nothing.
And your economy
and she
politics.
And she ain't got no gold. Paul Craig Roberts said that again. One of the analysts a couple of years ago said, where's the American dollar gold at? He says all in China. Do you think China had been sending all of that stuff over here and not getting anything in return? It don't make sense. America ain't got no gold.
Right.
What's his name? Jim Woolley said, he said, what's in Fort Knox? He said, we got a couple of gold coins and a couple of buckets over here. But it.
Hey, that's tungsten up in there.
And they can't. Tungsten, which has the same properties as gold, but it's not gold.
Right. Now, let me go to something. I want to go back to finish this last little sentence in this paragraph. Then I want to transition to this clip, because this clip goes everything that you've been hearing Rashid and myself say. I have a clip, and I want you all to listen to it. But first, I want to finish this last sentence in this first paragraph, okay? It says, in particular, this is being described as an extinction level event for tech startups because thousands of them did their banking with SVB. I cannot even begin to describe how cataclysmic this is going to be for the tech industry as a whole. There is so much to cover, and so let me try to take this one step at a time. Now, I want to say this, so y'all bear with me, Rashid, bear with me for a second, okay? Now, let's go to the dictionary for a minute, because we already saw what they talked about. This thing is an extinction level event, right? So I want you to pay close attention to this, because most people, when they talk to you, don't give you the definitions of what the meaning or what somebody's trying to convey to you. You get some of it, but you don't get the true meaning of what they're trying to convey to you. So hold on. All right, here we go. Now, according to the dictionary, the word cataclysmic means relating to or denoting a violent natural event, disastrous, catastrophic, calamitous, tragic, devastating. Now listen to this last one, ruinous. So what we're looking at is a ruinous event, and it is taking place in America now. What is so meaningful about this? Because guess what it's doing? It's depriving the so-called Tech Valley of its funding of innovation. Because remember, Silicon Valley at one time was touted as the innovation capital of the world. Without the finances, without the funding, a lot of the projects that these tech companies were about to go into, or some that were in bid testing, have to stop. Now, some of those companies were in bed with the government. They were doing civilian projects at the behest of the government so that they can use the technology as dual technology, civilian and military. Now, what kind of ramification is that? China is skyrocketing in its technological innovation. As a matter of fact, there was a report a few days ago that I read where some admirals and generals were saying that not only has China left the United States in manufacturing, but they have left them and almost left them in the dust in crucial technology that is of a great national security concern. Now, this is why America has her eye on China. But the world is moving away from the dollar. And with this being said, I often say this. I'm trying to wrap a lot up because I want to play this clip. Remember when we told you that China was sending all of these shiploads of goods to America? And people said, she has almost $2 trillion in US debt. And what we were trying to explain to you, because the West wants to point to China's problems, right? But China lifted over 850 million people out of poverty. That has never been done in the annals of the last 6,000 years. 650 million people out of poverty, right? Now, when it comes to China, they point to China's debt crisis or China's problem. Don't believe the numbers in China. Don't do this and blah, blah, blah. The Chinese were very meticulous about starting their own bourses, their own markets, their own trading, right? And what they did as they accumulated US debt, Western debt, they hedged their bets by accumulating gold, silver. They don't just have gold reserves. They have silver reserves. They have iron reserves. They have copper reserves. They have platinum reserves. They have palladium reserves. All of the metals that are instrumental in economies, booming economies. They have reserves in them, and they control 92% of the rare earth market.
You mean all of the real, they have real wealth. That's what real wealth is. You got a bunch of gold stacked behind you, not a bunch of paper. A bunch of silver behind you. Oil, grain, commodities that mean something of value, not just a bunch of paper with some dead presidents on it. That's not wealth.
And I was thinking about something, and this goes along with what we're talking about. And people say, well, why would China trust their investments in American dollars and accumulate 1.2 trillion, between 1.2 and 2 trillion dollars to keep that they were heavily invested, or the empire could have stymied their growth before they reached this particular stage of their growth, which now the empire can't stop. So listen, in boxing, there's a terminology called the pull counter. The pull counter. For those of you who are familiar with boxing, there's this terminology called the pull counter. And one of the masters of the pull counter is Floyd Mayweather, right? His father taught him the Philly shell. And let me tell you, this has everything to do with the economic moves by China. Just bear with me. Okay. Floyd Mayweather was a master of this, and what he would do, he would use his body and condense it. And so whenever you was throwing shots at him, he would be able to block the shots with his elbow and parry the shots with his arms, right? And would be able to turn as you try to hit him. The blunt of your punches would just whisk by him because he was able to do. And when you got aggressive, this is what he would do. He would lean forward with his chin out, and you as his opponent saying, "I got him now. I got him now." And as soon as you would throw, snatch the chin in, and be able to turn a shot unblocked, and he would smack you right in your face or right in your chest. This is essentially what the Chinese did to the United States. They put their chin out, putting that paper money back in the United States. And we said they were shipping all of these goods over here. China had already come to the conclusion that, hey, listen, we may lose this amount of money, so let's cover these losses with gold, with silver, with palladium, with all of these resources, and have them in reserve. So if we lose that so-called $1.2 to $2 trillion in paper money, it won't hurt so bad because we have these commodities, which if we so like to, we can then turn into a backing of the yuan, which would outstrip the dollar and keep us from suffering the heaviest blow that the empire wants to strike against us. I think that was a magnificent move by the Chinese, just like I think when Putin allowed some of that money of Russia to stay in those banks, knowing that they would sanction it and seize it. Putin has advisors around him. He is no fool. He did that. He had to sacrifice certain monies to get the world to see the true nature of the Western political and financial system. He had to be willing to sacrifice something. And now look at how it has caused the world to move away from the West and team up with the BRICS. So in losing, quote unquote, $300 billion, it wind up strengthening the Russian economy. It wind up giving a new hope to Russian manufacturing and domestic trade. And it also solidified the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the BRICS organization. And it is pulling people who are fed up out of the sphere influence into influence of the BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. That is a masterful stroke, just like the Chinese. Those are one and the same strikes. Now, back to something Rashid said. Rashid, when you listen to this, you'll say, we were just saying that. I was just talking about that. Listen to what this guy has to say about America and her sanction policies and how that's driving the world away from American hegemony and how other nations are now trying to gather themselves together with the global South and come up with their own trading mechanisms, their own economic systems outside of the dollar, the euro, the pound in the Western world. I told you, I was doing it, man. So listen to this right here.
We will speak now to Marco Fernandez, researcher with the Tricontinental Institute for Social Research and co-editor of Dongsheng News. Welcome. Military supplies to Ukraine have made the U.S. and the EU feel the economic strain, with increasing discontent in Europe over government policy on how the Ukraine conflict is developing. How do you see this mood developing, and what consequences could it have for Western hegemony?
Well, hello, Farella. Thanks for having me here. So I think, first of all, the mood, especially in the global South, is getting worse by the hour. You saw that recently President Macron from France said he was shocked about how much the West is losing credibility in the global South. But then even the president comes a few weeks later and do that absurd behavior with the president of DRC, which he was criticizing arrogantly in front of the TV cameras. So I think this is also expression of the hubris of the West at this point, of course, led by the United States. So I don't think most of the countries in the global south right now, I mean, they are not looking to US or Europe as a trustable partner for the next years.
You mentioned this changing relationship, but also Russia has proven resistant to Western sanctions. Last year, the country's GDP only shrunk by 2.2%, and it's actually predicted to grow this year. How do you explain this economic durability in spite of the sanctions?
Well, this is basically because Russia is a huge producer of manufacturing, also of food, fertilizers, and of course, energy. So, I mean, U.S. is already used to devastate countries with sanctions, like they're doing with Cuba for 60 years, with Venezuela, with Iran, and many other countries, Zimbabwe and Africa. But these countries had economies that are not so strong or are not so diversified with strategic resources as Russia has. So, of course, this tactic of, and by the way, Russia has, no other nation in history had so many sanctions from US and Europe as Russia has now. But of course, having this huge economic base and strategic resources for the whole world, of course, you cannot crush a country with the sanctions.
Right. So Russia has a lot more going for it than, say, some countries in the global south. But despite the unprecedented amount of sanctions that's been put on Russia and the political pressure coming from the West, many countries, specifically China and India among them, are willing to continue trading with Moscow. What's behind their decision?
Well, I think, first of all, of course, there is an economic pragmatic reason. I mean, countries need natural resources. Take the case of India, for instance. India now is the largest buyer of Russian oil. And China increased also, a lot, the purchase of oil, gas, and other resources. But I don't think it's only economic pragmatic reason. Of course, I think there's also political reasons, because more and more countries like India, who, by the way, used to be very close to the United States in the last decades, I would say, but of course being also very close to Russia. But countries like India, like China, like even Brazil, South Africa, I mean, they are part of BRICS together. And Russia is also part of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization with many other important countries of the region, as Pakistan, as Iran now is coming, even Turkey. NATO member now is already mentioning that wants to also to join Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So I think there is a big awareness, a growing awareness in the countries of the global south that we need to reinforce and organize even better these regional platforms, but also global platforms, the global south, because this is the only way to deal with the West, and especially U.S., with its increasing aggressiveness against so many countries in the world.
Right. It seems like what you're mentioning is this emerging multipolarity, and BRICS countries are in the process of developing alternatives to the dominance of the U.S. dollar in global markets. What changes do you think could occur in the international economy with this de-dollarization?
Well, first of all, it's good to mention that right now the BRICS countries, they are studying a mechanism to implement a mechanism that could bypass the dollar. Is what the Russians called first the R5 project, because the 5 currencies of the BRICS countries starts with R. So that's an interesting coincidence. But getting to your point, I think, of course, we know that the dollar is the real mass weapon of mass destruction, beyond, of course, the nuclear bombs, that U.S. has the power also to choke economies around the world, simply, for instance, excluding countries from SWIFT, that they did with so many countries, including Russia, also blocking the access of dollars, as they do with Venezuela and Cuba, for instance, and even Afghanistan. Or even worse, they could just steal the international reserves of the countries, like they did with Russia, more than $300 billion, as everybody knows, but also did with Afghanistan, also with Venezuela. So this gives the dollar gives US a huge power. But also you have to remember, when countries run out of the dollar, they have to go talk to IMF and beg to IMF to have more dollars. But IMF comes again with some of the package of measures, austerity measures, that also devastate states and whole nations. So there's lots of different ways, different tools that US have through the dollar to bully other countries. So that's why so many countries right now also are starting to create alternatives. I mean, China, of course, is a leading force on that, but many other countries are already doing directly, and some of those regional platforms as BRICS, or even Brazil and Argentina in South America right now, they already creating mechanisms to bypass the dollar. This is a trend. Of course, dollar will be still the hegemonic currency for many years, but we need to create alternatives, and this is what the countries are doing.
It's clear changes are ahead. Marco Fernandez, researcher with the Tricontinental Institute for Social Research and co-editor of Dongsheng News. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess they, like the brother, oh, I'll put him back on in a second, but let me show this just in case. So I had to put that up there just in case we have problems with some of the platforms about, using clips and stuff like that. I just don't want the problems because it seems like every time we get rid of the strikes, right before the last one go, we get some more. So I just wanted to put that up there. Now let me bring Rashid back in the stream because I think he was knocked out. You there, Rashid?
Yeah, they up to their old tricks with me. Don't want to hear me say a word. Boot me out.
Did you hear what they were saying?
It reminded me, like I said, I was listening to Douglas McGregor, and what he was saying was the same thing the guy was saying, but he was saying by the end of next year, all of them will crumble, because he said the military situation is coming around, and the geopolitical situation and the financial situation. By the end of next year, America, this whole thing going to collapse on us. So everybody better watch out. Keep your stuff stored up, because it's going to be a bumpy ride going forward.
Now let me go to the next clip. I want to get these two clips in because I know the time is in. But before I get the clips in, keep in mind this play. Keep in mind what I want to show you the contempt that these people have for you. It says SVB reportedly paid hefty bonuses to employees on day of FDIC takeover. so they couldn't. So they went belly up, but they had the money. Remember that they were holding $175 billion, of which 151 billion went missing. Well, all of it went missing, but the government was on the line for 50 plus billion dollars. But now it finds out that the government has to pay everything. That's if you look in your statements, it'll tell you that if you have bank statements, it'll tell you that the government insures everything upwards of $250,000. But why is it insuring 171 or 170 some billion dollars, $175 billion?
It is like what they had in the financial situation in 2008. All of the banks got bailed out, but they didn't give not one guy in Main Street no money. All them people lost all of those homes and stuff. They didn't come in and say, well, we're gonna just let all of that go by. Stay in your house, and we're gonna buy the house for you. they didn't do that. That's what they think about Joe Lunchbucket. Joe Lunchbucket can die out on the vine out in in the cold winter, but him and his buddies, come on in, I'll take care of it. Well, what about me? Slam the door on the Joe Lunch Bucket. Joe Lunch Bucket, let him die outside in the cold.
I want to also tell everybody that tonight, which is Wednesday, excuse me, quote unquote, and we'll be doing say this right here. Check this out right here. This is the article, and Rashid, hold your horses until I get to the last sentence of the first paragraph. Then I'll let you chew it up, buddy. I'll let you chew it up. Here's the article. It says U.S. Treasury simply. This is what the U.S. Treasury is money to bail out collapsed Silicon Valley banks. It said U.S. Treasury simply printing money to bail out collapsed banks. That's what we were saying. That's what we were trying to convey. Now listen to what the first paragraph says. I was skimming it while Rashid was talking. This is what it says. The run on Silicon Valley Bank and two other investment houses have sent shockwaves through the financial markets. Listen to this. U.S. President Joe Biden has pledged that all depositors, not some, not most, but all depositors money back, while investors will lose out, and claim that will not cost the taxpayer a cent. Make that make sense, Rashid?
It don't make any sense. It makes no sense at all. But then again, it's par for the course for the American empire that sit up that with that double speak. Say one thing and do another. Don't do as you see me do. Do as I tell you to do. Mm-hmm. That's what that is.
So how can this not cost the U.S. taxpayers 1 cent when by law it says that the government is on the hook for upwards of $250,000? But Joe Biden goes and says, everybody in the bank, you're going to get all your money back. And why would he guarantee that ones in debt and not the ones who lost their money during the Enron or these other bank closures and these all around the country that's been happening for the last 8 to 10 years that is not as publicly publicized? What is so special about that bank that he's willing to get on record and say, listen, that all depositors will get their money back, while investors, the poor man in the mud, just so happen to be the investors in that bank right now, will lose out? Go ahead, wrap on that for a second.
Well, really, since Richard Nixon got off the gold standard in 1971, the American money is not worth anything. It's not all. What they had $160 billion. All of it is somebody typing something on a computer. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. It's, as we keep telling you, it's not based in anything in commodities. They running a giant Ponzi scheme and got everybody hoodwinked that the emperor really has some new clothes. But you know how that story turned out. The emperor wound up and he didn't eat butt naked. And this is what happening with America. Is a Ponzi scheme that rivals is the biggest thing that you could ever see on the planet, because her money and her are nothing. She don't have any manufacturing. And I work on the transportation end of this situation. A lot. You remember when they had all them ships out there?
Yeah.
Got no ships out there now. They was running crews to ship goods and stuff on a train. And half of that is going on. They was running 3 shifts a day, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Now a lot of them are closing up. They're not shipping stuff like that anymore. They're what they call going dark. 1, 2, 3 days out the week. Ain't got no cargo going in. is slowly but surely creeping down, and the people don't see it.
And
But you can
I want
you see the evidence of it, that you go to the supermarket and you see that a lot of things are not there, but it's gonna start
to
getting worse and worse and worse.
I want to stay right here for a minute before I play the clip. I want to stay right here. Now, the people don't understand the magnitude of this. If the United States makes war with China, and China calls the United States debt, and the United States defaults on it or refuses or withholds the money, that is another sign for the world to see that America is untrustworthy and that she steals people wealth after she holds it. Now, here's another thing: 93% of all goods come from Walmart. I mean, come from China. Okay. Now think about this. We talk about all of the Walmarts, the Targets, and all of these big time department stores closing down. So that's a massive unemployment. But what we don't talk about is the train system, the trucking system, and all of that stuff shutting down, which means that now the people who have taken out loans for these uh, specific areas of the economy are now in a default situation that cascades and now affects the banks, which causes more banks to fail, which puts more pension funds at risk, which brings more poverty and more I would say Mad Max like situation all over America. And because it's so in bed, or like the Bible says, they have fornicated with the whore, the great whore. And see, when this great whore starts burning with this venereal disease that she has, that or starts burning from this
The U.S. has two
this economic
purposes in
gonorrhea
being
that she
in
has. The
occupying
other
the
nations,
eastern third of Syria completely.
you see what they did. But anyway, the other nations who are heavily invested in the dollar, who are heavily reliant on America, who are integrated. See, America did Russia a favor. I was reading an article earlier today, and it was talking about the situation that Russia is facing. And in the article, it said that Russia is thankful to the United States for sanctioning it and forcing it outside the system because they are not being affected by the meltdown of the banks. And so when you think about these things, when the great harlot that the world that the Bible says that had fornicated with all of the men around the world, and when she starts burning from this economic and this political gonorrhea, all those who had economic, political, and geopolitical intercourse with her are going to start burning too. And then there will be no penicillin because you've cut off China.
It reminds me of this guy, one of the heads of the IRGC in Iran, where they said they were going to sanction it. He said, "If I got any money in the American banks, then you can keep it."
Yeah.
All of this sanction and it only hurts the people that got money in their bank. If you don't got no money in their bank, it don't make me no difference if you sanction me.
Yeah. Yeah. So since they were messing with the dashboard, let's go ahead on and play the clip anyhow that they wanted us to play, because this has everything to do about America aggressiveness, and it follows in the same line we just played, but it ought to wake up to this madness. Check
The
this out.
U.S. has two purposes in being in occupying the eastern third of Syria completely illegally, of course. One purpose is to deny Syria the ability to undertake reconstruction, because the U.S. is plundering the oil and wheat resources so that Syria doesn't have the money to reconstruct itself after 12 long years of failed U.S. regime change war, which was supported by the U.S. allies, such as, unfortunately, Canada. That's reason one. Reason two is the U.S. officials have openly stated that they're occupying the eastern third of Syria in order to use that occupation as a bargaining chip in the final settlement over the end of the U.S. proxy war in Syria. So the U.S. is in there illegally. They know they're in there illegally, but they're staying there because they're using it for a foreign policy goal. And it just shows the utter hypocrisy of the U.S. In condemning Russia for its military presence in Ukraine, while at the same time they're occupying the eastern third of Syria. And we know that the U.S. That the Russians are in Ukraine because the U.S. and NATO provoked them into being into a war in which NATO expanded 800 kilometers eastward, despite a promise made in 1991 to Mr. Gorbachev, and they have provoked the war with Russia because they have pushed their expansion right to the gates of Moscow. So the U.S. is an aggressive empire. It is waging wars around the world or destabilizing countries from Syria to Ukraine to Taiwan to Cuba because the U.S. has one thing in mind, and that is hegemony. In other words, it seeks to dominate the planet.
So we see that everybody is waking up to this. Now let's go to the dictionary for a minute. And he said that it's clear that America is aggressive in her policies, right? The word aggressive means, it's an adjective, first of all, and it means ready or likely to attack or confront, characterized by or resulting from aggression, hostile, belligerent, bellicose, antagonistic, truculent, and pugnacious. This is America. The world is waking up to this, and the world is seeing this, and what we're trying to do is give you an understanding of this, because if you don't understand America's foreign policy, you'll never understand her domestic policy. If you never look at her domestic policy, you'll never understand her foreign policy. The empire has to feed on the blood and the misery of others in order for her to continue to go. She needs to put people in misery. She needs to put people in poverty. She needs to suck the resources, the brain power, the money, everything that she can, and then she moves to the next, on to the next, but now she has had some stumbling blocks, and she doesn't like this. As a matter of fact, let me go back to another clip. I want you to listen.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't have any great expectations of good developments taking place in the United States. I wish I could say the opposite. I've got no opposition to the people of the United States. For example, in things such as opposition to the Vietnam War, when I first came into politics, I cooperated with many people in the United States. I have nothing against ordinary Americans, whatever. But what is the case here is that the United States is trying to impose positions on the world which are not in the interests of the people of the world. It means that, for example, the United States is creating a higher price for oil. It's trying to, if you take China, where I'm obviously involved because I'm, work in Chinese university, it's trying to make people pay more for 5G by banning Huawei. It's trying to exclude Chinese companies from participating in the development of renewable energy, solar energy and other windmills and other things. And this is against the interests of the world. So we have a situation of, obviously Iran has to pursue its own national interests. There's no problem about that. The United States pursues its own national interests also. But the point is that the national interests of Iran correspond with the general international interests of the population of the world, and the United States are against them. And that's why a very pleasant and good news about Iran's oil exports corresponds to that. It means the majority of the world's population doesn't want to go along with the US. They don't necessarily support Iran, they don't necessarily support China, which I'm involved with, but they don't want to be involved in the sanctions policy and the unilateral actions of the United States. So that's why Iran's oil exports have expanded.
With all those clips we just played, and all of them talking about America and how she has to, her whole goal is to subject the world to her hegemony and to rule, to occupy Syria, to force Iran to bow, to make Russia bow, to force China to bow, to go to the BRICS, to do all of these things. That ain't for a week or two ago, okay? And let's hear what the United when they were condemning Russia and others for doing exactly what they are now, okay? Listen to this.
The U.S. Secretary of State has been ridiculed after saying big countries shouldn't bully others. Russia's foreign ministry spokeswoman replied with a sarcastic post reminding Anthony Blinken of his own nation's track record.
Viscerally, most Americans don't like to see a big country bullying another, and they just feel it's wrong and want to do something about it. One country just can't attack its neighbor, can't try to seize its land by force, can't try to erase it from the map, can't bully it.
Was it not the U.S. that attacked Iraq? Or is Iraq not a small enough country? Unless I'm mistaken, Blinken represents the USA and not some other country, so the Secretary of State should at least know his own state's history.
In Iraq alone, up to 1.4 million people died due to the consequences of the U.S. invasion, according to one survey. A Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson said on Friday that 37 million people were displaced following the U.S. interventions in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. Since the Second World War, Washington has been militarily involved in conflicts in Asia, Latin America, Yugoslavia, and throughout the Middle East. Almost all of Washington's interventions were justified by defending democracy or fighting terrorism. That's despite the fact most of these conflicts led to political chaos and high civilian casualties in the countries involved. Media and political analyst Lionel told us the current conflict in Ukraine is important for Moscow because of the risk of U.S. military involvement right at Russia's doorstep.
When you consider the fact that there are people who still understand, I think based in some kind of good spirit, that we have to protect individuals from being bullied and being traversed and being manhandled by, I don't think they really understand, number one, the history and how history has shown that, very frankly, we were doing this in the past. In my generation, we remember Vietnam. You can take the same argument exactly. I still don't even know what Iraq had to do with 9/11. We don't know. We're not even sure about Afghanistan. One day, we were out of Afghanistan like that, and nobody's talked about that. We're not even talking about Libya anymore. We had to go in and we had to take care of Libya because this man was an evil, terrible, despotic, and what about Libya? Who runs it? Is it worse or better since we were involved? We don't know. This is not about being an apologist or looking the other way. This is about the way to handle geopolitical reality today. What would we do? What would any country do if we switched the situation and all of a sudden we had China on the border, let's say, of Texas or Canada? Instead of Canada, it was China. It would be a completely different story. I don't understand how this message, how analogies, and specifically how history isn't remembered.
Rashid, I know you got something to say. I know the time is winding down, but I know you have something to say about this. Go ahead.
Well, just like you got him running around saying that what would happen if it was turned around on the other. Didn't we say that before? Don't do as you see me do. Do as I tell you to do. See, I'm exception. I can do what everybody else can't do. You know, it's bad that somebody walk down the street and rob a bank, but I can rob a bank. I can carry the whole bank away because I'm exception, right? I can do what everybody, like they have a criminal to go around and steal money from the ATM. Take the whole ATM and take it off, and then break it into somewhere else. That's America. She once again, as we say, she claimed to be the richest country on the planet, right? Well, according to their scriptures that they claim to believe in, what happened to the rich guy at the end of time? What happened to that guy?
He became
the rich man. That's right. And he was brought down to nothing. Can't you see that's what's happening to America? Everybody is turning against her. And then when they turn against her, the result, like you, Brother Rashid was saying, Mad Max, her society is going to crumble. Nobody going to send her nothing. Do you think if they go to war with China, you're going to still see them big, huge ships coming in here bringing goods into America? And remember, China is that economic behemoth of the East. Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia, all these other countries help feed into that massive economic behemoth called China. That's how China can, it's like when you're building a car, right? A car company. Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler, they don't actually make all of the components that go into that car.
That's right.
Some of them come from different other places, right? And then they like the wheels come from Firestone or whatever. The computer chips come from some. That's what happens with China. Everybody is help fueling this economic behemoth called China. And to cut China off is for any country around the world to sink because they can't compete with China. Even the some of the American chips and stuff inside of their weapons of war come from China. Their uniforms that they put on the American military come from China. Yes. The flags that they were able to wear come from China. And then you're going to go to war. Yeah. And then you're going to go to war with the same man. It just doesn't make sense. But then again, the leadership of America is insane. She's been riding that horse of leadership so long, riding, that she can't conceive of anybody else taking her off that spot. But as I said before, go back to their scriptures, and their scriptures tell you who is the one that's going to remove them.
And on that note, listen, we're gonna close out with this. On word Rashid said, they're insane. We often say this on our show. According to the dictionary, the word insane is an adjective. It means in a state of mind which prevents normal perception, behavior, or social interaction. Seriously, mentally ill. So those in power are sick in the head, and this sickness has trickled down into the society, and all you have to do is go out on the street, look left or look right, and you'll see a perverse society, and they put God to the back burner, and that's why it's so easy for them to curse with the name of God, because they don't respect and they don't fear God. No longer fears God. You have no
actually, they don't even believe in
it. To say
I said, well, actually, they don't even believe in it. They don't believe in him at all.
Yeah. Well, we like to go out the way we came in the name of God with love and peace. And we love you, but always remember that God will love you better. Go to thehealthblaze.com. That's all one word. Thehealthblaze.com. Support thehealthblaze.com. It's all natural products, body wash, soap, hair products, body butter, bath crystals, all of that stuff. Ready-made orders. Go to thehealthblaze.com. Support us. Also, check out all of our other platforms. The empowerment of truth.locals.com, which is part of the Red Pill Diaries community. Go to Odyssey and check out our Red Pill Diaries. Go to Twitter, sign up on our Twitter. Go to Twitch, sign up over at Twitch. Go to Rumble, sign up over at Rumble. We thank you all. Listen, we're slowly but surely making our way, but once we get in full stride, nothing will be able to stop us. If God is for us, who can be against us? Whether it's one of these social media platforms or whatever, if God is for us, We don't worry about who's against us because they cannot stop the bum rush. That note, we go out. We love you. God will always love you best. And as I always say, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Everyone.